Hi, I'm Jessica Patterson, back again with my Napa Valley spinning kit, and welcome back. Jessica Patterson of Spinning Shadows Fiber Arts, in case you didn't know from watching the previous videos. Previously on this special series, I blended up rolags from the kit. I used nothing but what was in the kit. And I managed to make 12 of them, which is 4 sets off the blending board. And yeah, I got tired of standing. So since I have a bit of free time to myself, I thought I would show you spinning. I'm going to be spinning these with the goal of chain plying them for a nice fluffy yarn to knit with. And I'll be using my Spinolution Pollywog on the fastest whirl. And so yeah, let's get started. I'm just gonna grab one off the table and go ahead and spin. So first thing I'm gonna do is I'll hook it around. I'll pull off the end and hook it around the hook and get started. There we go. There we go. And create a nice length to get us going. There we go. And let it loop around the bobbin before continuing on. If you've got a leader yarn and a different kind of wheel, this may not be so much of a thing, but you know, this is, if you've got a Spinolution that works like this. So I'm going to be spinning this with a sort of a long draw. And the way it works is I'm holding with my fingers here on the yarn. And that's preventing the twist that my wheel is creating from traveling up into my drafting area until I've drafted out a certain amount. And I notice that my tension is a little bit tight here. It's pulling more than I'd like. So as I pull back, I sort of open up my fingers and let some of the twist through to capture what I've drafted. Up until I have the length I want and the drafted out like I want, and then draw it on to the bobbin. And it's really relaxing. I tend to draw out a little bit too much at times, but it's a fun style of spinning. You need a really light tension on your wheel. If you've got a Scotch tension or double drive, Scotch means that the flyer is driven and the brake is on the bobbin, and that makes it really light on your yarn. And so you can hold back your yarn without it pulling apart or breaking. And that's great for long draw style of yarn, because it just, you don't want it being pulled too much. And the point is to create a nice airy yarn that for warmth. You know, I'm not handling the yarn too much except for where I'm pinching and letting basically controlling the twist for drafting. You can see it got a little thin there, but that's okay. I'm not handling it too much, and that will produce that'll mean that it's airier and just overall fluffy. So I've got some long fibers in there that really just want to come out by themselves and create thin yarn, but that's okay. That it'll all work out when I chain ply it. So it's sometimes you run into this issue when you make rolags, is not all the fibers play together perfectly, but that creates a really interesting yarn. Let's see, and it's going to have a lot of character to it after it's plied. There we go. And the over fluffy spots will even out. And the over thin spots will even out just as long as it holds together. Is the main thing when creating a woolen yarn. It's in no way perfect. And I mean, you can get a pretty consistent yarn depending on your fiber blends, or if you're just using one kind of fiber. You can get pretty consistent, and any lumps, bumps, or things usually just disappear when you ply, either 2-ply or 3-ply or whatever. And they become really unnoticeable when you actually work it up in a project, like weaving or knitting. Unless it's like a really thick and thin creative yarn, you just got some really noticeable spots like that. Might be a little noticeable. It usually all just evens out in the ply, so and there we go. I'm not being overly concerned with it being consistent. Let's see here. Alrighty. And there we go. I don't know why I'm hunching over while I'm spinning this. It's like, oh, I gotta hunch over for the camera. I'm not even the focus of the camera. So, yeah. So look at that. This is just gonna be a very lovely autumn sort of, or maybe more of a Thanksgiving type yarn, I think. There we go. Okay, now I've gotten to the end of one rolag. Let's see here. I've got this red just bunched up here. It's gonna be very poofy. And I'll just take the other rolag, hopefully you can see, and just sort of let them twist together a little bit. There we go. And once you introduce twist in, you can sort of draft out some of these pieces. As long as you're holding it back a little, you can draft out some of the big pieces just by tugging, giving it a little bit of a tug, like. And the twist will sort of, if it's loose enough, the big spots will pull out and then sort of get locked in by a twist. It's a little bit of a method to be learned for sure, but it's something I saw while researching great wheel spinning, or what they call walking wheels, and it really works just on long draw in general. Is being able to pull those thick spots out if you want. And it helps to create a more consistent yarn if you so desire. And yeah, it's just really a handy thing to learn. Yeah, there we go. I love spinning with the fastest roll on this because, it just gets her done. And it's, especially with doing long draw, like this, it doesn't take a whole lot of time to create a length and just spin it on. And I find that my spinning in general is faster this way and it's a lot more comfortable. I'm not spending a whole lot of time fussing with perfection either. I think most spinners do, unless they're really into art yarns. And so, especially if you're new, you spend a lot of time trying to make a perfect yarn. And then when you get older or more experienced, you want to get back to that really thick, you know, woolly type yarn, or at least sometimes I found I did. And it's hard because you're used to making, you know, thread or warp, you know, tough warp yarn. And it can be hard, but I have found that spinning with rolags really helps to get that fluffy yarn accomplished without a lot of headache. So I found when I've tried spinning thick yarns that I get really, my hands get tired of drafting, you know, trying to draft really chunky fibers. And this helps me to create those fluffier yarns and some bulkier yarns. This isn't turning out too bulky, as you can hopefully see from the video on the screen, that this is, in some areas it's going to be a little bit chunkier, but it's not in general. It's more at the moment it's wanting to go sock to lace weight, which is, for me, is fine. I love lace weight yarn, but this should fluff up when plied and washed. Now, yarns that you ply, you can just like jump straight into using them, but washing, especially if you're going to knit or you really want to see what the finished yarn looks like, I really recommend you wash and dry it. And by washing, I mean you just, you know, dip it in some water and let it dry. Hang it to dry overnight or whatever, however long it takes to dry. And that'll really show you the true character of the yarn. If it's a type of fiber that tends to fluff after being immersed in water, it really will give you a better idea of what you're working with. And if you're working with singles yarn, like a single strand of yarn, you don't ply it, then definitely wash it, or else it's gonna start coming apart as soon as you take it off the bobbin. That getting it wet and letting it dry will set the twist. It'll stay together. I mean, unless you purposefully untwist it. So, but on that note, if you wash it, the single, and decide later you want to apply it, you definitely can. I used to do that as a new spinner. I would wash my singles and set them before plying. Yeah, I know, not too smart, but yeah, I still turned out with great yarn anyway. It's just a little more difficult to see the end yarn until you wash it again. You set it again after plying, but you know, it works. You know, it's really hard to mess up. But the main thing is have fun. Have fun with your spinning and try new things. So yeah, I'm on my third rolag, I believe, while I've been chittering here. And this is from the November Napa Valley kit, club kit, and blended together on my blending board as rolags. And spun on my Pollywog. If you stay tuned, subscribe to the channel and hit that little bell icon so you receive notifications. I will be posting plying when I'm ready to chain ply this. It shouldn't take me too long to spin this up. And this is why I love rolags. So I will finish spinning this bobbin full of beautiful colors. And then I will come back and I will show you chain plying, how I get started and how it's going. And you'll get to see what the chain plied floof yarn is going to look like. Now I imagine when I wash this and I set it, the merino that's in this especially, and probably the camel down will poof. It'll really just puff up and create that beautiful layer of insulation that I love in knit pieces. This is my favorite time of year, by the way, when it starts to get cold and I can finally wear all that beautiful knit stuff that is just too warm for summer. But anyway, stay tuned for that. And if I have the time and I can pull it off, I will show the, I'm gonna knit the, not knit, well, I'm gonna knit with this. I've got to see how much I end up with, and I'm gonna pull off a pattern. The pattern will be determined by how much yarn I end up with after all of this. And then I will show the cast on and some of the knittings, and I'll talk about the pattern. And I hope to show the spinning of the main braid, which is right here on the table beside me. This is merino and silk, I believe. And I'm planning on splitting this up lengthwise into 4 strips, and I want to do a 2-ply with this. And I'm really envisioning a woven piece, which will have to wait because my loom and my shuttles and warping boards and everything are packed at the moment. So that will have to wait. But the yarn can be spun in advance of that. So anyway, as always, have a nice day. See you next time.